Planning Commission. I have a couple of kind of housekeeping things for you. Please turn off your cell phones, and we'd ask that you not cheer or boo or interrupt other people when they're speaking. When it's your turn to speak, come up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and then you have 2 minutes as part of the public to speak. And if you have handouts, you need to have paper copies to put with the record. And let's just try to be polite and succinct. We'll move to the first item on the agenda. Let's approve the minutes for the last meeting. A motion, please.
I move that the minutes be approved from a previous meeting.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Clark's not here. Okay. Matt? Andreas?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Amy?
Abstain.
And Adrian?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, the minutes are approved. The chair has nothing to report. Vice chair?
Nothing.
And from the director's office?
Yes. Excuse me, I have a couple things. First, sorry, bringing up my notes. This is just a gentle reminder to commissioners to please refrain from using your cell phone during the meeting. The city provides iPads for use during the meeting to access reports and documents associated with the agenda. If you're using your personal phone for this purpose, just know it can be perceived differently by the public, applicants, and staff. And that has actually come up not in this meeting, but in another meeting. Secondly, I wanted to give Allison just a minute to bring you up to speed as to what's going on with the inland port.
Good evening. I suggested to give a brief overview of what's been going on. If you've been following the news, you would have seen that Salt Lake City sued the state, the Inland Port Board, for the inland port legislation that was passed last interim session. And it's not related to the proposed legislation that's at the governor's desk now. But I thought it would be interesting for you all because it impacts the work that you do. So one of the bases for the lawsuit is the city claims that the state violated the state constitution that prohibits the state from creating a special commission that does some sort of like municipal function. And so part of that is we're alleging that the state is doing some sort of land use authority that we think is the role of a municipality. And so the way that the legislation works now is that in the Northwest Quadrant or in these jurisdictional lands, if there's a land use decision that's made and then appealed, that appeal doesn't go to an appeals hearing officer, it would go to the Inland Port Board, and then the standard is different. So instead of looking at whether the decision was like consistent with the ordinances that you all look at and help support and help the council evaluate, instead of looking at that, the Inland Port Board will then look and see if the decision was consistent with the Inland Port Act. So basically, it's kind of ignoring what we do here and what you all do here. So that's part of the basis for the lawsuit. And we filed it on Monday, and we don't know what's going to happen with it, but just wanted to keep you all updated on the status of that. So, do you guys have any questions? I can't talk about the future of it or give any legal advice.
Thank you, Allison.
Sorry.
Two more things. One, we have 2 new planners on our staff who you'll see some new fresh faces in the coming months. So our division is fully staffed again, which we're very grateful for because of the volume of applications we've been receiving this calendar year. And then finally, I should tell you their names. And I'm now going to blank on Chrissy's last name. Chrissy Gilmore, and Linda Vo. And then finally, the other update I wanted to talk to you about was the conditional building and site design review text amendment that this body recommended to City Council for approval or for adoption last February 2018. The purpose of the changes were to align the purpose statement with citywide livability goals, specify the authority that determines whether or not an application can be approved administratively versus come to the Planning Commission for approval, and to modify the design standards to remove a lot of the vague language and help eliminate duplicative standards and clarify how to implement each standard. So the City Council is considering this text amendment currently. They will have a public hearing on March 26th, and we anticipate adoption at some point soon thereafter. So when that happens, we will come back to this body with a short training on kind of what that new ordinance looks like. And I'm working closely with our graphic designer to develop a handbook similar to the ADU handbook that'll help illustrate to you, to members of the public, and to applicants what those standards mean and help kind of clarify a little bit more that language, as it can be somewhat jargony. So hoping to bring more clarity to that.
Thanks, Molly. All right, we'll move to the public hearings. Our first item is the Foothills Master Plan. There's the applicant. You have 10 minutes, and hopefully you have new stuff for us. And be sure to introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. I am Louis Kogan. I am the Trails and Natural Lands Division Director for Salt Lake City.
I am Zach Anderson. I'm here representing the Salt Lake City Bicycle Advisory Committee.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elliot Mott, and I am chair of the Peanut Board.
And I wanted to thank the Planning Commission members. I know that you've already spent a fair bit of time on the Foothill Trails Master Plan, and I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to come back to you, to hold a motion and come back to you after we'd had the opportunity to seek a formal recommendation on the Foothill Trails Plan from the Salt Lake City Bicycle Advisory Committee and the Parks, Natural Lands, Trails, and Urban Forestry, or Peanut Board. And I would like to just quickly remind all of you where we hope to go with this process-wise is take it ultimately to the City Council this spring and seek their formal adoption of this as a master plan for Salt Lake City. But at this point, I wanted to yield the rest of my time to allow Zach and Elliot to just give you a quick synopsis of the decision making that, or the reasons that the Bicycle Advisory Committee and the Peanut Board made the recommendations and what those recommendations are.
Okay, but you still have a total of 10 minutes, okay?
Okay. So just a quick background, the Bicycle Advisory Committee is a community-based committee that reviews, discusses, and advises Salt Lake City on bicycle-related projects. And we, as a committee, have given unanimous support and voted to unanimously support the Salt Lake City Foothills Trail System Plan, and we urge the Planning Commission to also do the same. I just wanted to highlight a few things about the plan that mesh well with the Bicycle Advisory Committee's mission and goals. First of all, this plan put forth by Lewis, I hope you guys have all had a chance to look at it. I just want to say, and you probably all know, that it's a very impressive piece of work. A lot of time and effort has gone into this, and they have everything from project backgrounds, existing trail status, and proposed trails, construction techniques, all the way down to trailhead design of signs and signage at trail junctions, and even to existing suggested hiking and biking loops. So a very comprehensive piece of work. And the main goals of this Foothills Trail Plan that Lewis has put forth are that this be an environmentally sustainable system, enjoyable, low maintenance, accessible, and safe. And pretty much all of those main points mesh with what the Bicycle Advisory Committee tries to do for Salt Lake City. And I think the plan, as outlined by Lewis, will hit on every one of those goals. And another impressive thing that the Bicycle Advisory Committee was really impressed with was the amount of public outreach that they've done. They've done over 15 stakeholder interviews, public surveys with over 750 responses, 50 intercept surveys at trailheads, 2 public open houses with over 300 participants that were really great events, and I think gave them a lot of great feedback. And then another really impressive thing was 2 sessions of interactive maps that were put forth on the web that the public was able to make comments on the trails, the proposed trails, as well as draw their own trails. And they had over 3,100 participants. So, and then presenting this plan to committees like the Peanut Board and the Bicycle Advisory Committee, as well as a number of other committees. So a lot of public outreach has gone into this, and we've seen that with the evolution of the plan, and we really like that. Another thing that we really like is it's a multi-use trail system, and it's not just about bikes, even though the Bicycle Advisory Committee is about advising for plans for bikes. This trail system has over 18% of proposed trails that are foot traffic only. So we like that it's a multi-use trail system, and that 41% of the trails will be either uphill or downhill specific trails to bicycles. And the use of directional bicycle trails will really reduce user conflicts between pedestrians and bicycles. And we think that's a great part of this plan. And it'll make it more safe and enjoyable for everybody. We also like the trail prioritization that they've put forth. The phase 1 really focuses on alleviating traffic in the heaviest traffic part of the foothills between City Creek and Dry Creek, and we think that they've just nailed it with targeting that zone first. And I just want to reiterate that we have given it our full endorsement, and we hope you will as well.
Okay, it's my turn. Thank you. Do I still have 10 minutes?
Oh, you're
Okay.
down to about 5.
All right. I will hurry. Thank you. Thank you for the time. Again, my name is Elliot Mott, and I chair the Peanut Board of Parks, Natural Areas, Trails, and so on and so forth. I'm here today to speak to you as an outdoor enthusiast who recreates on city trails, and also to voice support for this plan as chair of the Peanut Advisory Board. By way of introduction, I'm a longtime volunteer organizer of outdoor events, open call, group events outside. Mostly I lead bike rides and hikes and kayak tours, many of which are within Salt Lake City. Through the years, I've organized a lot of these, counting over 860 of these things so far and counting. This weekend, for example, we're riding into town to enjoy the St. Patrick's Day Parade. On trails, I often position myself toward the end of the group to make sure so no one gets lost. And from that viewpoint, I see the user conflicts that are most common on our trails. And there are 2 that really stand out. One of which is the errant bicyclist that comes racing by with some disregard for everyone else. And the other one is out-of-control dogs, off-leash, jumping on other trail users. The Foothill Plan lays a groundwork to address these issues. It will separate trail user groups. It will add trail patrols to police conduct. It will define and improve trailheads. It will add trail signage. A regular ranger presence on the trails will help combat the homesteading our homeless population currently does. In addition, the plan will reduce outlaw trails, minimize foothill erosion, provide for trail upkeep. And when viewed in aggregate, these are all significant. Louis Cogan and his team at the Parks Department have done a superb job putting this plan together. They performed the heavy lifting, seeking public input, consolidating ideas, and crafting the plan before you. It's an excellent start, and one with built-in provision for updates and modifications as conditions on the ground change. I opine it is good governance for the city to have a plan in place to proactively address the many issues we face in our foothills. The plan will help us do this. Appropriately, it will roll out in stages. This will help us prioritize expenditures. Going forward, it will empower us to better address the many management challenges we face in our open spaces, natural lands, and on our trails. And finally, let's not lose sight of the fact that a trail network promotes and nurtures active, healthy lifestyles. After all, we are a life-elevated state. It's our convenient connection with nature, with the natural world, and high recreational opportunities nearby that makes this all possible. In closing, I'm here tonight to voice support for the plan as a trail user and also as the chair of the Peanut Advisory Board. And I encourage this board to do as well. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. You guys can step back. And we'll open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to address this? If you want to come up to the microphone, state your name, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Jim Webster. I'm a landscape architect. I live on Military Drive over by East High. A lot of people have taken credit for this, of course, but I was the guy who went to Chevron and said, "What could we use your pipeline easement for the shoreline trail?" And that's how that whole thing happened, but that's irrelevant. But I've had a long interest in trails, particularly in the linking the park system and so forth together. The biggest obstruction that we've encountered is the University of Utah, as you're probably well aware. The Huntsman Cancer Institute now is crowding out the shoreline trail again. Certainly the Museum of Natural History did the same thing. I don't know what any city can do when they're up against a state institution like that, but that's certainly been a challenge. And I think there is an opportunity down the road for a little bit of payback in terms of some property that the university owns along Red Butte Creek, where they could maybe cooperate more than they ever have before with the community in terms of a trail. And I'm sure Louis is aware of that, and I commend Louis on the work that he's doing, and I think the master plan is great. I also worked with the East Bench Master Plan Group that meets in every month on the last Monday of every month at Anderson Library, and this has of course been a subject of our discussion on many occasions. So I just think the only thing we can really do is hope that our legislature will somehow rein in the University of Utah on these matters where the public good has certainly been jeopardized by the crowding out of trails and so forth, and will probably continue. You're probably aware that Huntsman is going to expand to the north as well, and may even jeopardize access to the Jewish Community Center. So I think that's an important consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it up to the commission. Any discussion? Concerns?
Can I ask Stuart a question?
Sure.
So we got some pretty detailed comments.
Yeah, we'll have to get him to come back. Louis?
Oh, Louis, sorry. So we got a few pretty detailed and thoughtful comments at the last time this was before us. What's the process for accepting comments and considering those as you're working through the plan and its administration and, future updates?
Absolutely, thank you. So the comments that we are getting as we are going through the process and hopefully approaching City Council adoption is that we are seriously taking every comment into account and then aggregating those with all of the other comments that we've received on whatever the particular topic or topics are for that comment. If the comment is relatively, if it's a request for a modification or a novel idea that hasn't come up before, and there haven't been other comments on that topic, then as staff, we're looking at potentially just making those changes as we approach the final draft that will go in front of City Council. If the comment is something that we've received a lot of other feedback on, then we basically view it in light of all the other feedback that we've received on a particular topic, whether it's a trail alignment or a request for signage design, something like that. Once we get hopefully past the adoption process, we are intending to probably take a year or two off and then look at an update of the Foothill Trail System Plan. Part of the goal, a big part of the goal of that update will be to incorporate the area of the foothills between Immigration Canyon and Parley's Canyon into the trail system plan, but that will also be an opportunity to incorporate feedback and things that we learned and public comment that comes in after adoption into kind of an amended rollout.
Perfect, thank you.
You might as well just stay there, see if anybody else has a question.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
First, thanks for all the work that you have done. The 3 times you've been here, I'm convinced that there's no one better than you to have undertaken this project, and so hopefully you stay with us for longer. Based on the findings, analysis, testimony, and plan presented, I move the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council and to adopt the Salt Lake City Foothill Trail System Plan.
I'll second that.
There a second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll take the vote. Adrian?
Yes.
Amy?
Yeah, as always, Louis, I'm always impressed by the work you do and the end products that you bring forward. So thank you for everything. And I vote yes.
Thank you. Sarah?
An enthusiastic yes.
Carolyn?
Agree.
Andres?
I also want to thank you guys for your work, Zach, Elliot, and I forgot your name again. Sorry, Louis. Yes, you guys really have put a lot of thought into this, and it looks very nice. So yes.
And Matt?
Great job. Yes.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. You got your positive recommendation.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Good luck.
All right, we'll move on to item 2, which is the zoning map and master plan amendment at approximately 504 South 9th East. Sarah?
Thank you. As you stated, these are zoning and master plan amendments for 504 South, 900 East. The proposal is to amend the zoning from RMF 35 and RMU 35 and amend the master plan land use designation from medium density residential to medium density mixed use. You can see in the image on the left, the property outlined in yellow. It's located at the southwest corner of 500 South and 900 East. And then on the right, you can see the 2 buildings that are located on the site. The property was historically a commercial property with a gas station. It converted to a residential use in the early 2000s, and the proposal is to redevelop the site with a first floor commercial use with residential above. The applicant has not submitted a site plan, so that is not being reviewed as part of the master plan and zoning map amendments. On this slide on the left, you can see the future land use map with the property outlined in yellow. Again, it's located at the southwest corner of 500 South and 900 East. The existing future land use designation is medium density residential. The applicant is proposing medium residential mixed use to allow for the residential and the commercial use. There are 3 different land uses adjacent to the site. To the north is medium density residential mixed use, and then low and medium density residential to the east and the west, and medium density residential to the northeast. There is higher density residential located within a block of the property just to the southeast. And for this property, its existing medium density residential land use designation is more intensive than the other properties that are located on the block face. On the right, on the zoning map, you can see that the property is zoned RMF 35, and the adjacent properties to the east and west are zoned RMF 30. The property directly to the north is zoned TSA UNT, and then the property to the north and east is zoned RMF 30 as well. It's just to the north of what's shown on this map, but you can see that their property is within 1,000 feet of the track station on 400 South. As far as compatibility with the existing master plans, it's compatible with Plan Salt Lake and Growing SLC. Plan Salt Lake encourages development near infrastructure and amenities as well as transit. It also encourages mixed-use development and the redevelopment of underutilized land. And Growing SLC supports a variety of land uses, including multifamily houses and encouraging housing options. The Central City Community Master Plan supports a variety of land uses, multifamily housing, and also maintaining the eclectic mix of uses that are in the neighborhood. As far as the conditions right now, the existing zoning makes it difficult to redevelop the parcel due to the small size of the site. It's too small for a multifamily in the RMF 35 zone or a planned development. And so the proposed changes would allow for redevelopment of the site. And so staff's recommendation is to recommend forwarding a positive recommendation for the master plan and zoning map amendments to the City Council. Are there questions?
Questions for Sarah right now?
Yeah, I do. Sarah, I'm a little confused about what is actually, what they could actually do with the RMF now. Is it only a single-family home they could build, or can they build something with multi-units, or just can't get as many units as they want?
Sure. So with the existing size of the site, they need 9,000 square feet to do multifamily units. They need to do a minimum of the 3, and the site is about 5,700 square feet. So that right now they could do a single family home and possibly an ADU on the site, but they couldn't do multifamily.
Is it one parcel? Could they do 2 single-family homes, 3 single-family homes?
It's one parcel, and it's just over 5,000 square feet, so it would be one single family home.
Thank you.
Anything else for Sarah right now? Is your applicant here? Why don't we have them come up and introduce himself? And
hi. I'm Ian Kaplan. I'm the applicant representing the landowners on this project. I have a brief little presentation that I'd like to give, although Sarah did a phenomenal job of kind of putting all the information together. Let's see here. How do we switch it over? Do you know?
That's a good question.
Let's see if I can pull it up.
Is it in that viewer?
Still here.
I think that might be why.
technical difficulties, huh?
Oh, there's that.
PowerPoint was in a viewer, and I didn't even think about that.
Well, you know what? I'll do it without the presentation.
Okay, okay.
That's all right.
And
It's
you have
not that
10,
important.
you have 10 minutes, so.
Okay, yeah, it was only going to take me about 2.5. So,
Oh, okay.
first
We're
of all,
liking that.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for your time this evening. I'm going to just scroll through this myself as kind of a bullet points. So as Sarah noted, the project's located on 5th South and 9th East. It's historically a commercial property that had a small little gas station on it. the owners back in the 90s cleared it with the EPA and the DEQ, so it has been kind of decontaminated already. There's no environmental issues with it. And their intent very early on was actually to open a small little community barber shop and maybe do like a residential unit above that. They've had the property for over 20 years now, and because of the current zoning situation, we can't build anything on it but a single-family house. So it's kind of out of alignment with the current zone, which encourages like medium-density residential, but because of the lot size and the way the zoning code is set up, we can't do anything. So the reason why we're rezoning to the RMU is actually more to get some medium-density residential on there that actually fits the intent of the code. And then, yes, we do want to do a small little kind of 700 square foot commercial space that can help to activate this part of the community. We did work with the East Central Community Council from the very beginning of this and have been in close contact with them. Initially, they were kind of opposed to it, but after several sessions working with them, they just want to see the streetscape beautified because there are two very large curb cuts on the north side and the east side that are currently present for the gas station use. And so we're actually going to get rid of both of those and restore the historic big kind of green space that identifies this part of the neighborhood. We'll keep all the existing trees in place and actually beautify that as a public space, kind of similar to Cafe Noir, if anybody's familiar with that, using that as kind of a public space with benches that serve the commercial space. So currently the commercial use, we're thinking either a coffee shop or maybe even like a small bodega that serves, you know, fresh sandwiches and soups to the local community, or maybe even recently we've talked about like a smoothie juice shop. So something small, non-obtrusive in terms of, you know, fumes and odors, no drive-through coffees, no like residential with a commercial hood or anything, just basically like deli style, you know, no cooking, but just cold cuts and things like that. So right now we have the intent to do actually micro units on it to serve more for affordable housing and to diversify the housing stock in the neighborhood. So we're not targeting high-end luxury residential with big unit sizes. We're looking at kind of small loft spaces, mostly to serve like the lower income residents, somewhere in the 300 to 400 square foot range. So that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Okay, great, thanks. If you'd step back now.
For sure, yeah. And
Okay,
the
we'll-
presentation that I had, I think Sarah can probably forward it to you guys. And it's got my contact information in there as well if anybody has any additional follow-up questions. So.
Okay, thank you. We'll open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone from the East Central Community Council here who wants to speak on this? I guess not. I do have a card from Cindy. Come on up. And you know you get 2 minutes, right?
I get how many minutes? Two. I have to hurry because I've been on this property for a long time. So it's a very solid staff report, but this is an impaired zone. I really appreciate the staff's reference to the East Central Neighborhood Plan adopted in 1984. No one cites that anymore. Thank you very much. And also the 1995 determination about the nonconforming status. I can support a zoning change here at this location because we've gone through 2 booming periods of development and nothing has happened. It's very clear that nothing is going to happen unless the city makes some changes. However, we've got this impaired zone. So the RMU does not require housing. If you make a positive recommendation and the city council adopts it, there is no guarantee that there will be housing at this site. Despite what the developer has said, he may sell the property or the property owners may sell the property. There's no guarantee. The other issue that you need to look at is that this is not an underserved area in terms of commercial uses of any size. It's located between 400 South and 9th and 9th, and it is loaded with non-conforming business properties, and the non-conforming business properties between 700 South and 900 South were brought up to conforming status a number of years ago, 6, 7 years ago. So we've got abundant commercial uses here. I'd be much more enthusiastic if this was simply solidly residential 100%. We really don't need another coffee shop. They're all over the place. The only way out of this is for the city council to adopt a development agreement to ensure that there's housing at this site. And if there's not housing at this site, you certainly shouldn't rezone it. We'd be better off to stay with the current situation, the 3 units that are there. So You don't have the authority to initiate a development agreement, and the staff, I don't know a single planner I respect who would recommend a development agreement. They're just bad planning. But that's the only way out of this because this zone is dysfunctional. So you do have the authority to initiate a change to the ordinance, and you could bundle it with your recommendation tonight. And I don't know why you don't use that authority more often, because if I were in your position, I sure would.
Thank you, Cindy. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this? No? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back up to the commission. Shall we get Sarah back up here? Do you have questions for the applicant too? We'll start with Sarah.
All right, Sarah, so in the RMU, does it require a commercial use? Or can that be fully residential?
It can be fully residential. It does not require a commercial use.
So if it's an RMU 35, they couldn't necessarily make it all commercial though. It would have to have a residential component, right? Or could it all be commercial?
It could all be commercial as well.
Could all be commercial as well, up to 35 feet.
So that if it's strictly commercial, there or strictly non-residential, there's a 20-foot height limit.
And then what are the setbacks and like what portion of this parcel could be developed? So let's just say if it was strictly commercial.
It was strictly commercial. I don't know that I included those in my staff report. Let me see if I have those in there. So if
The
it's
question what the setbacks are?
the non-residential and multifamily setbacks are the same. So the front yard would be a minimum of 5 feet, a maximum of 15 feet. The rear yard would be 25% of the lot depth, but not more than 30 feet. As far as interior side yards, there would be none unless it was a budding single family or two family. And then there's a minimum open space requirement of 20%.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
From a planning perspective, because it's a corner lot, do you view that differently at all in terms of whether or not commercial use is appropriate there or not really? Just given the sporadic nature of the small commercial stuff that's kind of throughout that neighborhood.
In terms of the history of
The appropriateness.
Sure. In terms of the history of the site, I think that there was historically a commercial use there, and the different zoning that it does have right now being RMF 35 rather than RMF 30, and then also the master plan designation that is different than those surrounding uses. I think there was some consideration given towards it being a little bit different than those surrounding properties. And it's also adjacent to the TSA UNT zone to the north, which does allow for a much more intensive development than the zones to the south.
Thanks.
More questions?
Correct me if I'm wrong, on 9th East, from this location here, the closest, similar shop that you see would be on 4th South and 9th South, is that correct? There isn't any other small coffee shop around in the area or sandwich shop or anything of that nature in that 9th East?
I think
But
that
you
there
can get down
are
to
some,
7th and 8th South, and you start
and,
to
and
get a
there may
little bit
be
of retail.
I don't know that are any existing commercial uses of that type on 9th East and in the immediate vicinity, but there are several storefronts between 400 and 500 on 900 East that I don't know that would be something that couldn't go into those at some point.
Okay, thanks.
Question for the applicant. I don't know if you can come back up.
Would you come back up, please?
Just talk me through a little bit more your conversations and relationship with the community council, because they write this letter on December 21st that they're opposed to it. I mean, they weren't here to weigh in, so it's hard to kind of really get a sense of it. But you kind of suggested you've been talking to them and that you had their support, and so just talk.
And Matt, did you see in the Dropbox where the community council sent another letter where they are now in favor of the project?
Someone also say opposed? Does not support these changes to our neighborhood. We support these changes conditionally.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
just
so
to
they're-
clarify on that, so when we initially submitted a site plan to the community council in terms of what we were looking to do, our biggest feedback from the community preliminarily to submitting this application was that they were concerned about parking, as most residents are with these kind of tight infill properties. And so we were actually proposing to take out, instead of replacing the curb cut to the north, we were actually proposing to do more striped parking there, angled parking, which is the development pattern on the north side. And the community council, that's actually why they were opposed to it, is that they really like those corners being prominently landscaped, and we were basically proposing to take it out and put more parking in. And so in part of our discussions with them, they basically said we'd like to see that actually become landscape again, not parking. And so we took that out of our proposal, because we actually put it in there thinking that that's what the community wanted, but it turns out that's not what they wanted. So they wanted landscape, so we just kind of swapped that out, and that was part of our discussion with them, that we would definitely beautify that corner as opposed to put more parking in. And that's where the decision switched.
I hear the wheels turning. Any discussion? Thoughts? Questions? Okay, a motion.
I think for me, it's hard because it's squishy because on one hand, I've been doing community stuff forever, and I've seen, and not that this is any reflection on you personally, but I've seen so many developers meet with the community, be like, yeah, we'll do that, and then they never do it, and there's nothing to hold them accountable. And because you don't have a site plan before us, it's not as if I can condition it that you have to do it. And so it's always a concern in the back of my head, because I've just seen it play out that way too many times. And then I do get concerned when we're talking about rezoning, about what is potential, and then the original plan doesn't actually get through. So that's where I'm squishy, and it's hard for me to enthusiastically be one way or the other. And I'm trying to contemplate what the implications really are if it does get rezoned, and say you did sell it, and would a new developer find it financially feasible to even do all commercial? I kind of think no. But then they would do 9 or 10 luxury apartments, and we couldn't stop that either. And so so I really want to maybe hear what other commissioners are thinking regarding the potential of what could end up there, and is that something that complements the neighborhood based on the plans, the area plan and the master plan that the community have been part of.
Well, I think if we're concerned with that, we could suggest that the city council require a development agreement with the property owner as a condition of approval.
Molly, has that ever been part of a recommendation and then a request historically to the city council for these type of things?
You can make a recommendation to that end, but the council doesn't have to.
Right, it's
Right.
up to the council
I'm
to
just saying, like,
decide.
I've never actually in 10 years heard of that, so I didn't know if that was something totally new or if it was something appropriate, because I've never seen it happen.
I would say it's probably not very common. Excuse me. Probably not very common, but
But the project, there's precedent for it. And it's a way to ensure that the site is developed according to the plan that we've heard about tonight, and wouldn't be a totally commercial use going forward. Granted, it's not a perfect solution, but I think, I tend to think development agreements have a good role to play in planning. I don't think they're incredibly useless, but this might be a place where we would recommend that to the city council to consider.
So I have another question, Sarah. If when the site plan is given to you and say it doesn't come before the planning commission, does planning look at and make recommendations for, say, how they would access this, like encourage them to access it off 5th South versus 9th East, or the vice versa? Are those things that planning takes kind of an administrative role in making recommendations to site plans that are otherwise meeting the ordinances, but to try to comply with the neighborhood and how it's flowing and stuff like that?
I think those are things that would be considered, but it does come down to what's on our ordinance as far as what's required for the applicants to do for access and how they want to lay out their site.
Just out of curiosity, what is required in an RMF or RMU for access on a corner parcel?
Sure. So the access would need to be a certain distance from the intersection, so it would probably be on 900 East.
Okay.
I may just note, the property actually has an easement on the south side for a shared driveway amongst 5 different properties. And so that's what our intent is to use that shared easement and actually do parking stalls off of that easement, which is allowing us to get rid of both of the curb cuts on the property.
So, and that's a recorded shared easement?
Yes, it's on the deeds of the neighboring 3 parcels and the multifamily parcel that's to the south.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Anybody ready to make a motion?
I actually like the idea. I mean, it's a very nice presented idea, and it seems that it's probably needed in that area too, to have a nice little shop that people can go and stop by for a few minutes or something. And so, whether you want to add any type of thing is, I mean, I like the idea how it is, but if you want to add something to it, that's up to you guys, I guess.
And add something to what?
To the motion, if you wanted to. There was a
Well,
suggestion.
I think the suggestion was that in order to help preserve what they've presented, they're going to do the intent.
And I do believe
that we could recommend for a development agreement.
Yeah, and I do believe the applicant. I mean, he seems to be very straightforward about his plan to do something like this, to do a commercial restaurant. You're right. There's nothing holding him to it, but I don't see something that would make me doubt his point of view. So if somebody would word something carefully, then they would easily pass, I think.
I don't really care if there's a development agreement either.
Okay.
I think it's a corner lot with a space that has a lot in the area, and I don't see the significant expansion. I think the market probably will determine. I mean, building an independent commercial there might be challenging on its own. So I don't really feel the need to
Add
but
that.
I don't oppose it if other people feel strongly.
Well,
I
if
get
no
the
one's gonna
feeling,
make a
I get the
motion,
feeling
I'm just
nobody's
gonna do
being
one.
strong.
Okay, I'm going to go and people can fight. Based on the findings and analysis listed in the staff report, I'm going to stop for a second. I'm seeing 2 here. Do I need to make both motions?
Yes, one is for
They're
the
both-
zoning
okay.
map and one is for
Got
the
it.
master plan.
An analysis, okay, I'm starting again. Based on the findings and analysis listed in the staff report and the testimony and plans presented, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the Master Plan Amendment, PLN PCM 2016-00898, proposed amendment from medium-density residential to medium-density mixed use. And do I just go to the next one immediately? Are we voting on these together?
I think we can vote on them together.
I think you have to have two separate
Okay.
motions.
Okay. Okay, that's the first one. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, let's vote. Matt,
Yes.
Andres,
Yay.
Carolyn,
Agree.
Sarah,
Yes.
Amy,
Yeah.
Adrian.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
I'm going to make another motion.
Thank you,
Based
Sarah.
on the findings and analysis in the staff report, testimony, and discussion at the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve the proposed zoning map amendment, file PLNP CM 2018-00839, proposed zone change from RMF 35 to RMU 35, in order to allow the property to be redeveloped with a moderate density residential use with a commercial component.
Second?
Second.
Sorry. Okay, Matt,
Yes.
Andres,
Yay.
Carolyn,
Agree.
Sarah,
Yes.
Amy,
Yeah.
Adrian.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. You got a positive recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's our last item of, our last item of business. So we're adjourning this meeting. Thank you.